The following content is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marina Sprocki-Spriggs, and welcome to Always Another Way podcast. I have a master's in professional counseling, and I am the IPPY Award-winning author of Stop Looking for a Husband, Find the Love of Your Life, and Nasty Divorce: A Kid's Eye View. I've been writing positive divorce advice for the HuffPost since 2012, and I'm trained in clinical hypnosis. And this podcast speaks to out-of-the-box thinkers, and it's for those who hear the call of hope and always another way. And if you are very rigid and set in your beliefs, this probably isn't your cup of tea. However, you should note, tastes can and do change. And I want to thank everybody for listening to the podcast, for sharing it, and also for subscribing. And another plea again to go to the podcast app and subscribe and rate to the Always Another Way podcast. And today, we have such a good show on today. The topic we're going to be talking about is forgiveness. And I love it how all kind of my shows intertwine and themes that I talk about intertwine. And I believe that we are all connected and that we meet people along the way that are part of our journey. And in June, I had gone to the psychedelic conference in Los Angeles, the big psychedelic symposium. Super, super interesting, great speakers. And one of them I met, and I think it was just like chance in the hallway. This woman, Anna, and she was one of the presenting speakers, and she has a book called Forgive and Be Free. And so we had just a super lovely conversation. I mean, talked for quite a while, got her book, got her information, and just found her super fascinating. And then as I started to read this book, and I didn't tell her this at the time, but when I got this word forgive, it was like the bad F word for me. Like the other F word I don't have a problem with, but this one, like I do. And then just because I always thought it meant like allowing or accepting, and couldn't get that definition out of my head because I'd had people that have hurt me in the past that I will never get an apology from. And then part of me also thought, like, okay, that was a long time ago, like I forgot about it, but still have a little bit of this, vengeance. Or one person I was like, it's the worst part of my life, And so as I started to open up the book and get ready to read it, I'm like, okay, let's check this out. And at the beginning, there was something a little bit that I was like, it kind of feels like that old forgiveness. But then when I started reading, I'm telling you, if you have a problem with the word forgive, like I do, or even if you don't have a problem with it, you're just struggling for whatever reason, or you just want to look at forgiveness another way, oh my gosh, I highly recommend this book. And we are just going to bring on Anna, and I want to tell you a little bit about her first. Anna Holub has a master's. She teaches forgiveness and recovery from addiction as a counselor, author, poet, and educator. She has a BA in Peace Studies and an MA in Dispute Resolution from Pepperdine University School of Law. Anna is also a certified domestic violence counselor, radical forgiveness coach, and certified recovery coach. Anna is deeply inspired by her daily study of A Course in Miracles, meditation, and yoga. And from her own difficult childhood to becoming a successful counselor, Anna knows firsthand the benefits of using forgiveness as a tool for inner peace and freedom. And over the past 20 years, she's worked with thousands of people, including couples, inmates, at-risk families, hospice patients, nonprofits, businesses, and schools. Anna's mission is to extend peace, includes her work with inmates in prison in San Quentin, and with youth offenders in juvenile hall. She has provided restorative justice, poetry, and mindfulness meditation to incarcerated people since 2002. Anna teaches workshops internationally on forgiveness, self-empowerment, women's issues, emotional healing, and communication skills. She has presented her work in Singapore, Argentina, Mexico, Poland, the Czech Republic, and around the United States. Her books include Forgive and Be Free, The Edges Are Friendly, and a chapter in Colin Tipping's book, Why You Still Need to Forgive Your Parents. She also created the Healing Power of Forgiveness audio CD and 4 e-courses, including Forgive and Be Free of Your Addictions. She's worked for over 20 years in the field of restorative justice and reconciliation, teaching her clients practical skills for living boldly in harmony, strength, and empowerment. And I want to welcome you to the show, Anna.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you, Marina.
Yes, so just wondering, what kind of drew you into the forgiveness field?
Oh my goodness, that's such a big question, but I would say that there are 2 ways that I answer this question. One is that for many, many years, as far as back as I can remember, I was very interested in peace and peacemaking and what is it going to take for us to be peaceful on this planet, and more specifically, what about me? You know, how can I be peaceful? And so that seems to be one of those running themes that I just have had for a long time. And the other part about it, which is the story is in the book, is about my mother and growing up with a mom who had some pretty severe mental illness that was getting worse as I was growing up. And then when I was 23, she took her life, and it was very devastating for me and for the whole family. And I was 8 months pregnant at the time. And I was really young. I was, in my 20s. And so that really precipitated a deep spiritual and psychological journey for me. And when I found the forgiveness work, it really started to heal. And then I knew, okay, this works. This is what I need. And so I went from there.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I'm just so sorry about all of that. And that's just so wonderful, just how you found this beautiful place to come back to and help others. And I'm a peace person too. So maybe that's why we're also drawn together is all that. And and I kind of mentioned at the beginning, forgiveness for me, it was just a very loaded word. And it is for some people. But what I like about your book, which is just such another way, because it is just so beautifully well written and detailed, and you do just a lot of really good explanation and sort of reframing of forgiveness. Exactly. And how do you define your type of forgiveness work? And what does forgiveness mean to you?
Yeah. So at the beginning of every workshop and at the beginning of the book, I need to do this exploration and this explanation, because people think about forgiveness in a certain kind of traditional manner where we got taught when we were kids. In many cultures, I can't say all cultures, but certainly in the ones I'm familiar with, that, okay, when we're kids, we should say we're sorry when we do something wrong. And then the other kid is supposed to say, well, it's okay, and move on. And for a lot of us, that's about it. That's all the training we got. We were 4 or 5 or 6 years old, and then we're supposed to figure it out for ourselves after that. Mm-hmm. And in the traditional model of forgiveness, there's always a victim and an offender. So the victim ends up doing some kind of inner work where they say, okay, offender, I'm gonna let this go, which is a beautiful thing to do, except that it keeps the victim and offender roles in place. And when we do that, then we don't really get the huge amount of healing that's possible. And so this expanded kind of forgiveness comes from a few different places where I have studied and then received these teachings and then kind of threw it all in the pot with the peacemaking and reconciliation stuff that I've studied. So I worked with Colin Tipping, who wrote a beautiful book called Radical Forgiveness, and other books, and also Course in Miracles, and also Ho'oponopono. It's a Hawaiian version of very similar thing, which is an expanded version of what forgiveness actually is. And so for me, in the way that I teach it, it is a way of being very, very honest with what's going on inside of ourselves. What is the pain, the fear, the anger, the resentment, the grievance, the shame, the guilt, all that kind of funky bottom of the barrel stuff that we walk around with, and often there's a denial layer on top of it. So being super honest, getting underneath that denial and saying, all right, what are these constrictions that are inside of me from tough things that have happened, from whatever trauma that I've experienced? And then once we contact that, to, in a very simple and reverent way, with non-religious prayer, to say, all right, I want to lay these burdens down. I need help, and I want to lay them down. So it's a very direct conversation that we have with our Creator, or the God of our understanding, the Goddess of our understanding. And that can be whatever it is for each person. But it's a contact with something that is loving and kind and larger than ourselves, so that we can get the help to lay down these burdens that we carry around. And that's the first part, which is the laying down. And then the second part is to really get some deep teachings and receive the blessings from the teachings and the peace that comes when we're free. We don't have those burdens anymore. So that's, in essence, what this work is all about.
I love that, and especially the part where you talk about that difference between the perpetrator and the victim, and how to just separate that all out was just really beautiful, because I had not heard that before. And to be honest, at first, I had like a little bit of this apprehension, like, wait, like, what if you're little and you're not like a part of the, you know, like that, like, you know, when you just kind of guess ahead. But I was like, no, keep reading, keep reading. Mm-hmm. And then I did. And you really just had such a beautiful way of framing it up and answering things, so that I think visually, even just as I was reading, I just got a lot of really good visuals about the process that you outlined for forgiveness. And it really is just amazing the way you've put this together. And that being said, you know, because the book is this beautiful step-by-step explanation of how to forgive and be free. And so in reading this, I guess two things I want to talk about is, one, how long can somebody expect to take to, like, okay, I've read this, I want to get down and dirty. When does the, you know, forgiveness and stuff all really take place? And then after that, maybe if you could, you have a few people that you've shared some of their experiences in the book. If you want to share like a little something about what someone did and then the benefits they had afterwards. But maybe we'll start first with the forgive.
Right. So you said, yeah, how fast can it happen?
Yes. Yeah, the time frame.
Yeah. Well, I wrote the book as a way for many people to be able to contact this kind of healing, because before that it was just, you know, people coming to me personally for sessions, which is great, and I still offer that. However, I can only touch so many people. So as a gift to the world, really, I wanted to offer this. And the way I do it in the book is, I as you mentioned, I talk a lot about it, and I give stories. I give stories from my life and stories from other people. And then the second part of the book is the step-by-step process. So you can do it by yourself. You can do it with a trusted friend and do like co-counseling, or you can bring it to a therapist and say, hey, I really like to do this and I need some support. Or you can come to me directly and we'll do it together. So getting very familiar with the steps is important. So I suggest that people read the book and then go back and do the process. Once you get a sense of what the process is, it doesn't take long at all. The healing itself is outside of time. And what I mean by that is, our egos think, oh, I don't have time for this. It's going to be a big deal. It's going to drag me under. I'd rather not deal with this thing. I've already worked on it. I really don't want to hear about this, from myself to myself or from my creator to me. And so we put up all kinds of denials. But then when we actually get to it and say, all right, I'm ready. I am so tired of looping this pain over and over again. There's got to be another way, right?
Yeah.
There is. So that's when we get ready and say, all right, I want freedom, and I'm going to do what it takes inside of myself. Now, once we get to that point, then it doesn't take long. It can be anywhere from a few minutes to, if you want to really deeply experience it, and write about it and pray about it, and, it could take a longer time. But the actual flushing out and letting go process, and then the stillness, and then the reception of grace, of light, of love, it's outside of time. It doesn't take time. It's not about time. But in this world, when we have time, yes, it can be super brief. You can have the whole revelation in 5 to 10 minutes.
And let's go from there, because you could see how it just can all happen.
Yeah.
And let's tell everybody just what some of just these beautiful benefits are. Once you've just finally forgiven and to be free, maybe things you don't expect when you're thinking about it and kind of shove it down, but think you've let it go, but maybe, the clue that you haven't, if it comes back up or has any tension or emotion held tightly with it too. But what are the good news when you're like, all right, did the work, read the book, took my time? What can everybody expect?
Yeah, well, there are physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual benefits. And there's been scientific studies on this, and these studies all relate to the traditional model of forgiveness, which is still beneficial. And even then, there are a lot of benefits. And some of those benefits, and this is information I got from the Mayo Clinic website. So this is scientific data now, that forgiveness lowers your blood pressure. It's great for stress reduction. You have less hostility and better anger management skills.
Yeah.
The heart rate goes down. There are fewer depression symptoms and anxiety symptoms. There's a reduction in chronic pain. There's a lower risk of alcohol and substance abuse. There's more friendships and healthier relationships, and greater religious or spiritual well-being, and improved psychological well-being. So if you think about all that, that means we're feeling more peaceful, basically. Our upset goes down, and our feeling of joy for life goes way up. And in addition to all those things, I would add that one of the things I love about this work is that it opens up our awareness and our ability to contact our intuitive wisdom, because these constrictions aren't in the way anymore, and we've gotten the lessons from them. They always have beautiful lessons in them. So the way I look at it is, we're on the earth, and it looks like we're individual people with separate bodies, and we're doing this whole thing. And yet there's a lot more to it than that. And a lot of it is quite mysterious, and I'm not trying to figure it all out. However, I do have this intuitive sense that we are much more than our personality and much more than our human body. And therefore, the soul essence of who we are is here for some teachings. It's to receive lessons, to have experiences, to crack open some codes. And I really feel like this kind of expanded forgiveness is an opening. It's a doorway. When we walk through that doorway and we learn how to lay down all the suffering that we've experienced, it's like these burdens we've been carrying, and we learn how to just let them go with reverence and prayer and gratitude and total honesty as to how tough it's been. And we're ready for something really new. we will receive intuitive wisdom. And we'll also be then open so that as we walk around, new things can come toward us, new vibrational possibilities are then coming toward us because we are vibing out into the world in a new way. And we get to have these like flashes of intuition much more often, like eventually all the time, where we're walking around going, oh, time to do this. Oh, time to go over there. Oh, wait, stop. Time to be still. And all those things become easy. And then we're in the flow, and then miracles start to happen all the time.
I love that. It's just seems like a daunting process, but then just once you get into it, it can be just so very just beautiful at the end in ways that just people have just never even imagined. And I did some of the exercise through here. Like as I was going through, I just stopped for a minute. I'm like, let's see if I can visualize. So in here you have, you gave an example of your dance teacher that you just visualized in another way. And so I was like, how could I do this kind of similar I picked this one person and went through the steps. And I will just validate what you just said about that believement of seeing things just in another way, just a different relationship, seeing it more as like, this is a gift that I've learned something from, and really an openness to that particular situation that I haven't had before. And so, thank you. Book already working.
Yeah. And whatever that was that you discovered with that particular person, it's linked to other things that have happened in your life where there are, I think, only maybe 2 or 3 themes that each one of us, we come as an eternal being, we come into this very temporary life, and we're here to learn some lessons and get some goodness and give the goodness. So whatever that was for you and the way that you reframed it, and hopefully any emotions that you were able to release with your breath and let them down, let them turn to dust, because when we're not recycling them over and over again, we get to, when we release them, we see, oh my gosh, this was a lot of drama about nothing, basically, except for that it's the doorway into the lesson. So that's really cool. And worth doing. Absolutely. So when we get the lesson, then we realize, oh yeah, this relates to these other things that have happened in my life, and there's a theme going on here. So did you have a sense of maybe what that theme relates to?
Oh, I know exactly. Yeah. So just the theme of just yes, it was an abusive person to me, and maybe just like from just a little bit of growing up too, like that, and just the theme of just being, pretty angry at stuff that when I didn't know I had power to speak up. And so maybe from a young child wasn't aware of that or wasn't able to express it. And then, the gift that I got, I was just mad. And a lot of it was mad at the person and then mad at myself that I was in that situation, that I was, these words like I was just dumb enough to be there. And I can't believe I let this go on for all the things that you say to yourself that we have that list of. And to just see as like, okay, and I actually saw him as like playing a part, like in a movie. So I got to play this bad guy to give you some information. And just could see somebody as maybe a person that's also troubled. And then all of those things together of seeing other people as humans and then also seeing in myself what that part is all together too. It was really neat.
Right. And thank you for saying that. I mean, I call that I'll be an asshole for you.
Yeah.
So, basically people going around doing really terrible things. And I don't gloss that over at all. I mean, I've had my share of traumatic experiences, and most everybody that's listening has too. So we can't just jump over it and pretend that never happened, because that doesn't work. You might have already realized that. So when we go back and go, all right, so whatever happened to happen, my memory of it is what I'm keeping. Yeah. So that being the case, it's in my system now. It's my responsibility, actually, to take care of what's in this channel of me. So nobody else can do this for me. I'm really not a big fan of the kind of healing where other people will say, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of this for you and I'll pluck it out for you. I don't know that we get much learning, and we don't grow our inner muscle when we keep saying, oh, I need somebody else. Yes, we need to help each other for sure, and we learn from each other. But ultimately, this work is done between ourselves and our Creator, however we understand that to be. And yes, we have lots and lots of help. But what I mean is we're responsible for ourselves. Yes. And so I'm glad that you mentioned about the self-forgiveness that is part of this as well. And every healing that goes really deep has an aspect of forgiveness in this expanded way, forgiveness, laying down of sadness and pain and fear, and also self-forgiveness for ourselves that we either allowed it to happen, or we were, born into it, or sometimes we're just angry at God, too. Like, what am I doing here? I don't like this life. This life sucks. We can walk around feeling that way, but then we just get sick. Yeah. So
it'll get you in the body. That stuff will, for sure. Too. And so what are some other things maybe that just we didn't talk about, or something else that you might think is really important with this that you want our listeners to know?
Well, in the last few years, I have been combining all this knowledge and fascination and passion with this kind of expanded, I call it ecstatic forgiveness, because that's how it feels when we let it go and we're standing in the light and it's like, oh, wow, okay, new moment. So that's the ecstasy part. So I've been combining that with the intense, contraction that a lot of us are going through around addictions of all kinds. Because when we think about it, an addiction is really us reaching over and over for something to fill the hole, inside of us, fill a void that we might feel. And it's very, very connected with this healing kind of forgiveness work. Because if you can imagine, and I'm sure you can, because all of us have either obvious or subtle addictions, then even with the subtle ones are just working in the same mechanism as the obvious ones, but they're just quiet and underneath the surface. But they all have to do with we keep reaching over and over and over again for something that seems to work at first, but then it really just gives us a downward spiral into a lot of suffering. So we need to then be very, very compassionate with ourselves and our loved ones who may be going through this, and then say, okay, this is part of recovery. There are many, many aspects to recovery depending on the kind of addiction it is. There may need to be some detoxes and things like that if it's a physical one. And then just to realize, okay, if I'm going to be in recovery and choose that for myself, then there is this deep inner unwinding that needs to happen from trauma in the past. Yeah. So I have a new online course that's called Forgive and Be Free of Your Addictions. And it's for people who are now in an addictive state but want to get out of it. It's for people who are in recovery, and you may have been in recovery for a long time, but you just want to keep going with the depth of what that really is. And it also can be for loved ones who want to understand what your partner or your child or your parent is going through. So it's an online course, and it has this forgiveness aspect to it so that people can learn how to do this and then relate it to where their addiction or addictive tendencies come up.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like it. And so where can everybody just, find you at, and what things have you got coming up?
Right. Well, the best way to get a hold of me and see about my work is to, if you're a Facebook fan, I'm on Facebook on a Holub, I think it's called Author and Forgiveness Counselor is what you'd find. And then there's my website, which is anaholub.com. That's ANAHOLUB.com. That's B like brother. ANAHOLUB.com. And that has my book, and there's a CD with a couple of meditations and also the online courses. So, and you can also book a session with me through my website.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you, it was a super, just a wonderful book. So very well written, descriptive, educational, and then just the way you explain everything in just such beautiful terms. And I really recommend this for anybody, because at some point somebody is going to offend you in your lifetime if you live long enough, past a couple, age 5. And it's just it's a wonderful way to look at things. And I recommend it as just required reading for everybody, because the more that we can just let go, understand, forgive, and be free, and then this opening up, and then just meeting one another like we met, and you just keep passing it all along, and what just a more beautiful, peaceful world this would be.
Yes, that's so true. And if you would rather listen than read the book, there's also an Audible version, there's a Kindle version.
Nice.
And thank you so much, Marina, for your support, because as a writer and a counselor, a lot of times, this is stuff that I do and I'm really into it. And then when I feel like, oh, it touched somebody, oh, that like makes my day. So thank you.
Well, it is not only touching, like super game changing, and really can be life-saving for people, because there is, as you know, too, and they've had research since the 50s about stress, heart failure, and then just the anger that just comes with not forgiving can kill you for sure and for real. And so when you release that, you're just having a whole absolutely new lease on life, and I think a new mindset too.
Yes, and a new vibration, and a new saying yes to the goodness of life.
That's right.
That's right.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Anna. I enjoyed meeting you in June. I loved your book, and thank you so much for being on the podcast. You just have such a wealth of information. I love the work that you're doing, and I will talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you so much. There's always another way.
That's right. Thanks for listening, and I'll back up what she said. There is always another way.